3, 2. Here we are.
Welcome to our Didn't See It Coming Q&A. We're constantly trying new things at the moment to try and connect with you guys at home. So whether you're watching this live, whether this is something you won't watch live and you'll watch during the week, we hope that it can be very informative and it can be a good time for you just to learn a little bit more about our series, which we received a lot. I've got my phone on me today because we're actually going to be interacting with you guys while it's happening. We'd love it if you guys can even send us... I'll actually mute my phone though so I can't hear myself talking. How's that sound? But it's a bit more of a casual feel tonight, so which will be good. And we're just going to ask a few questions that you guys have sent in and answer them. But we will take live questions. Depending on how tricky the question you ask is, we might not answer it straight away, but we hope to answer as many questions as possible. So jump in, tell us if you're on the chat. If you don't know how to use the chat feature, if you've got your phone, you sort of just type in at the bottom. But just tell us if you're watching, tell us if you've got questions, if you want us to elaborate on anything. As Tonks is answering questions and stuff, or I'll answer a question, I'll keep looking down at my phone just to make sure we're keeping in touch with you guys so we can do it. Ooh. Yeah, so you really enjoyed this series, didn't you, Tonks?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic book, fantastic series. I thought the topics that came out, the messages that came out, we never really touched on those things before, and lots of great feedback coming back from different members, emails, comments at the door, lately, just emails and phone calls, but yeah, great book, great series. So very pleased that we can now do a bit of a Q&A, share a few other insights into it all.
Fantastic. So I'll get us going and ask you the first question. And,
all right.
Just bring it up
here. Are they going up here, are they?
No, they won't come up here. They'll pop up below us here and I'll read them out as well. So the first question we're going to have is, I understand the dangers of cynicism. So cynicism was one of the topics. I should just mention quickly, actually. I'll mention quickly the topics so you know what you can ask questions of if you're waiting, if you've forgotten. But the topics were cynicism, compromise, disconnection, irrelevance, pride, burnout, and emptiness. So if you've got any questions about any of those topics or you want to elaborate it on, please chuck them in. Ooh. So I'll read this question out now. I understand the dangers of cynicism, but how do you cope with people seeming to take advantage of you over and over? As a Christian, I don't want to be a doormat, but I still want to care for people in a godly way.
All right, well, I've done quite a bit of research into each of these questions, had a good look, trying to draw out some deeper things around the scriptures, and obviously some which I'll say when it's just my opinion and so on, but I had a little bit of a look through this one and thinking that I think that we can avoid the feeling of being treated like a doormat or that we are someone's doormat when we align our focus on who we're serving. Who are we giving the glory and the honour to? So if we're looking to the boss, the person, the friend or ourself, that's when we could feel like a doormat. But if we continue to keep our eyes on God. So for example, I'll put down here, when it comes to the workplace, say you've got a really nasty boss, nasty co-workers, it can be very easy to become hard-hearted in those sort of situations when the focus remains on that nasty boss, those nasty co-workers, or even just on yourself and your own feelings. So if we consider what the Bible says, Colossians 3, 23 to 24, whatever you do, work at it with your whole being for the Lord and not for men. All right, because you know that you'll receive an inheritance from the Lord as your reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. So when we keep our focus on that kind of thing, we're focusing on there for Jesus. I'm not there necessarily to please the boss. I'm not there to please my co-workers. I'm there to honour and please and to serve Jesus. It takes that focus off. The heart can become more tender and open, more loving and all that kind of stuff. And then that cynicism, it just can't take root. Also consider, if we're thinking about, doormat and all that, but what about what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount? We touched on this little bit of tongue-in-cheek on Sunday, but check this out in Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 38 to 47. Now this is hardcore discipleship here, but Jesus says, you've heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you are sued in court and your shirt is taken from you, give your coat too. If a soldier demands you carry his gear for a mile, carry it 2 miles. Give To the one who asks, do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow. You've heard the law says, love your neighbour and hate your enemy. But, this is Jesus saying, I say, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you'll be acting as true children of your Father in heaven, for he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust alike. And I suppose this is a real important part of it, where he says, if you love only those who love you, what reward is there for that? Even corrupt tax collectors do that. If you are kind only to your friends, how are you different from anyone else? Even pagans do that. So I said that's some hardcore discipleship stuff there. And some may view it as being a doormat. But I think what Jesus is saying to us, this is us rising to a whole other level in our love. This is becoming like Jesus. So rising to that whole other level of love. So the thing becomes, no, I'm not your doormat, but I am going to love you with a love so rich, so deep, so sacrificial. It's a love that can only come from God. So I hope that gives you a bit of idea. Reframing the whole thing into it's an act of sacrificial, unconditional giving love as Christ calls us to. So
Fantastic. I don't have too much to add there because cynicism really is it's one of those ones. Some of these you can look in a healthy way, but I don't think cynicism really has a healthy side to it, like some of these other ones there. So it's good just to avoid cynicism as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go to the next one. Still looking at the topic of cynicism. Andy Stanley, this person's pretty good. Andy Stanley talks about the best way to ensuring that you have a great marriage is to believe the best about your spouse at all times and give generous explanation for things that you don't know the full truth of yet. Do you think if we applied this same idea to loving everyone in our life, it would help to stop the cycle of cynicism? There's a lot in that.
It is. It is. Yeah, I remember that Andy Stanley talk. We used that at one of our marriage nights where he spoke about that very thing around ensuring your marriage is better by always believing the best, thinking the best in your husband or wife. So I thought about that again. I thought pretty long and hard about this one because I thought this is a pretty challenging and deep kind of answer. Now, if we go back to what cynicism comes from a place of hurt quite often. Like if I'm hurt, I'm going to respond to you with cynicism. I'm going to treat you poorly because it's me trying to guard my heart against being hurt again. That's like that, the old saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So I'm going to start to harden my heart, not going to let someone in as almost self-preservation. It's going to protect my heart. It grows out of the attitude where you've hurt me, you've disappointed me, you've let me down once, I'm never going to let you do that again. So I become hardened. It's almost like a defensive. I'm going to put up a defence. We put up a shield, we harden our heart, and that's when the cynicism starts to really, really take over. So what Andy Stanley is talking about is that it's choosing to believe the best rather than allow cynicism to make us think the worst. Because sometimes we think the worst, the mind begins to wander, the mind starts to believe the worst in a person, oh, they're only going to hurt me again, they're only going to disappoint me again, and that just erodes relationships in the context of marriage, like the question, erodes marriage even more. So the thought then is to think the best. So let me give you a bit of a hypothetical. You're sitting at home and your wife's running late from work. She should have been home 10 minutes ago, but she's not home. So the cynical heart begins to think, where is she? Why is she late? I bet she's staying back so she can flirt with Manuel and him and his sexy Spanish accent and his handsome chiselled jaw. And we start to become angry and angrier and more jealous. But then when she finally does come home, we realise that she's home late because she went to Tyrific to pick up our favourite dish and there was just a delay in the order. But we've allowed the cynicism to already begin to affect the way we think. The cynicism starts to doubt and think the worst in someone rather than the best. And that kind of thing is going to erode even the best marriage, the best friendship, the best relationship. So then I looked up 1 Corinthians 13 verse 7, but this is in the Amplified version of the Bible, the Amplified version. It says this, and this touches on exactly what this question's asking about, I suppose. It says, love bears all things, regardless of what comes. Love believes all things, looking for the best in each one. Love hopes all things, remaining steadfast during difficult times. Love endures all things without weakening. And that's the kind of love we're called to show. That's the kind of love we need to be sharing with one another, and it's the kind of love that will defeat cynicism. So let me also add, this isn't about burying your head in the sand and ignoring real issues that are coming up. However, we need to make sure that we're, again, elevating our love. It's taking it to a whole other level. It's loving others more and more like Jesus loves. And it's refusing to allow cynicism to erode our relationships.
Yeah, instead of being cynical, you just ask why they're late, or you can, have
Yeah.
have that open side instead of holding things to yourself, I suppose.
Yeah,
Communication.
for sure.
Yeah, so we had a few more people jump on now, which is fantastic. One thing I'll let you know, we want to give away a book tonight. So if you want to buy a book, you can, but we want to give away one of our books. So if you ask a question, if you put a question in the chat, your name will go in the draw. And at the end of the night, we're going to take it out of the cup, way out of the hat, and you will see if you can win a Didn't See It Coming book. And they're worth $30, and we'll deliver it to you for that. So you chuck in a question if you've got one. We'd love to see it. Just whack it in the comments. If you don't know how to use the comments, you can send me a text if you've got my number. But it's in the church directory if you're a member of our church. We'll jump on to the third question now, though.
All right.
Bear with me, 2 shakes. Whoops. Okay. The Christian... Oh, this burnout. We want to go to burnout. What have you got? Do you think?
Do you have any tips for not compromising was number 3?
There you go.
Another one there.
No, that's it.
Yeah, you're right.
Do you have any tips for not compromising?
All right. It said that especially when it can be due to the fear of man over the fear of God.
There it is.
So we've all been there, haven't we? We've all been there at work, school, in the sports club where everyone else is perhaps doing something. You're the only one not doing it, and sometimes it's because of your Christian convictions. So everyone starts to call you a wowser or whatever. And we feel more and more like let's give in or let's just go that way because we don't want to be the odd one out or whatever. Let me begin with some great words from Psalm 119 verses 9 to 11. It says, "How can a young person stay on the path of purity? By living according to your word. I seek you with all my heart. Do not let me stray from your commands. I've hidden your word in my heart that I may not sin against you." Now, I know that might sound a little trite. It's kind of like, yeah, that's what we expect the pastor to kind of say. But I truly do believe there is power in the word of God. And the more we read the word of God, the more we study the word of God, the more we understand the word of God, and we get the word of God deep down within our heart, it shapes our life, it moulds our life, it moulds our convictions, it gives us strength and resilience in the face of whatever the temptations to compromise might be. Here's a great one. This comes from my mentor, Bill Purvis. He often speaks about if we're going to make decisions in life, if others all around us sort of giving us a hard time, do this, do that, and we think, what is the right decision to make? He does this thing which he calls the 10-10-10 rule. Now, there's a few variations on this, but the 10-10-10 rule. He says, every time I find myself in a situation where there appears to be no easy solution, I ask myself 3 questions. What will be the consequences in 10 minutes? So if I do this, what will the consequences be in 10 minutes? What will the consequences be in 10 days? What will be the consequences in 10 months? And you can even add in there, what would they be in 10 years? So a couple of hypotheticals maybe. There's an expectation in your workplace to fudge the truth, tell a lie in order to land the sale. All right, so there's an expectation from the boss, the other co-workers. If you don't do it, someone else gets caught out. So the sort of expectation, you've got to do it. So we start to ask ourselves the 10-10-10. So how will I feel in 10 minutes? Well, if the sale goes through, we'll probably feel really good. I got the sale, I get the commission or whatever. But then when I think, how will you feel in 10 days? Well, if the client finds out that you lied to them, you might start to getting yourself into pretty serious trouble. How will you feel in 10 months? Well, if you're unemployed because the lie led to you losing your job, then or a loss of reputation, and we start to see how that 10-10-10 works out. Another hypothetical. Like us, you're a married man, you're out for drinks with some people from work, and an attractive work colleague flirts with you very strongly. You walk her to the car, and you end up giving her a kiss. How do you feel in 10 minutes? Well, you might be feeling fantastic in 10 minutes because she's like really cute. Or maybe the guilt is starting to overwhelm you. A huge rush of guilt and shame. How do you feel in 10 days? Well, the guilt will probably be eating you alive. Other work friends probably will start to find out. The whispers start to circulate around the office. How do you feel in 10 months? Well, the news finally got back to your wife. You've been to couples counselling, but it's going to take a very, very long time for your wife to ever trust you again. So we start to think, how could it be in 10 minutes, 10 days, 10 months? What would those consequences start to be? And there's a saying that I've tried to live by, which actually comes from an old Petra song. Who out there is old enough to remember Petra? The song said, you'd be a bit Petra fan, Josh? No?
Couldn't tell you much about him.
The song said, I'd rather be a fool in the eyes of man than a fool in the eyes of God. So that's going to give me some good guidance.
Yeah, it says it well. It's couldn't add too much to that. I just think, when you're compromising, often it's for that instant feeling, like you said, and it can be a big problem for young people. I know young people really want to compromise, but Kerry Newhoff says in his book, and if you think about when you get older and you're not hanging out with those friends, people rarely remember if you did that thing they were trying to get you to do, if you stole that lolly wrapper at the shop, if you did all those drinks with them or something like that. But what they do remember, as Kerry Newhoff says, he says, for all of us, it's our character that determines how we'll be remembered. So we need to remember to have that good character. And quite often, if you did have a good character, you could be the person they turned to at a tough time, particularly if they didn't worship the Lord or weren't a follower of Jesus. Now, there's one question that came out of your comment there.
Okay.
What's a wowser?
A wowser? Well, probably that word will come up again. A wowser, I suppose, is, I've never been a drinker. I don't drink alcohol at all. So I would go out with workmates and things. We might go down to the pub after work, or there'd be a party on a weekend, and people would say to me, come on, Tonks, have a beer. Why don't you have a beer? Come on, have a beer. And I'd say, no, I don't drink. And they'd say, what are you, a wowser or something? So a wowser was kind of like someone who's like really, really conservative. They don't smoke, don't drink, don't go out to parties, don't go to clubs or something. So they kind of, I suppose people would view a wowser as boring and all that kind of stuff. So
wow, I've never heard of that. There you go. Learn something new every day, don't you?
Must be an old saying.
Yeah, I've just asked on the chat, tell us if you knew what a wowser was before that.
Some of you know what a wowser is. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
What about a bocker? Does anybody know what a bocker is?
A bocker's a haircut, I think, isn't it? Okay.
It's true, it is.
Next one. Where are we? Okay. I've just got them in a funny order here. I'll make sure I was through. How do we find? Okay.
Kyle will be telling me if my sipping's coming out on the live stream as I drink my coffee.
Here we go. You might find something I've noticed if you've been watching our Sunday services. You might find you sometimes hear the communion leader crunch the bread through the microphone. Yep. Something I've done a couple of times, I've been guilty of. How do we find the balance between staying relevant and becoming indistinguishable from the world? It's big words there.
Yeah, that was a good question. That one made me think pretty hard, actually. This is where the wowser's going to come back into it. Because I think there's a cliched stereotype of Christians, that Christians are wowsers. Christians are party poopers, they're outdated, they're boring, their life is dull and it's uninteresting. Everything that Christians do is daggy, half-rate, second-rate, all that kind of stuff. Always think Christian equals uncool. I was watching a TV show recently, which I've really been enjoying, and the mum wants the daughter to marry a cool Christian person. And she said, that's impossible, Mum, because if they're Christian, they're not cool, and if they're cool, they're not Christian. I'm like, come on, we've got plenty of cool Christians around our church. But that seems to be the view, that if it's Christian, it's like daggy and uncool kind of thing. Yep. But the flip side is it comes from Christian people, is that Christians can sometimes believe that if it's contemporary, if it's modern, if it's cutting edge, then somehow it must be of the devil. Larry Norman, you heard of Larry Norman?
No.
Petra, Larry Norman,
Petra
all these
again.
old singers. But Larry Norman used to sing a song back in the mid-70s, Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Music? Because there's this idea that if you're a Christian, you can't have contemporary music because contemporary music's of the devil. So we're kind of always working in between those two balances of the daggy side and the of the devil side.
I had some Christian friends we used to go to, and I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons when we went to their house. We'd watch The Simpsons every night except when we went to their house.
So to me, the balance between staying relevant and remaining indistinguishable from the world comes down to what I believe are the very clear ethics of the Bible. Truth, justice, honesty, faithfulness, purity, and most importantly, love. They're the things that should be the distinguishing factor. It's not about that we do it half-hearted. We should be doing it better than the world. But what they see, despite the quality of our workmanship or the quality of our sportsmanship or whatever it is, those ethics that come out. And I know this part can, again, sound a bit cliche, but it was a huge, remember all the rubber wristbands and the mouse pads and all that, WWJD, what would Jesus do? But I think it's still relevant to ask those things.
Definitely.
You know, like, would I act like that if Jesus was standing right beside me? Would I speak like that if Jesus was there? Would I watch that if Jesus was watching it with me? Would I drink that much if Jesus was there? Would I act like that at work if Jesus was my boss? Would I act like that at school if Jesus was my teacher? So, what would Jesus do? Just a way of thinking about it.
Definitely. And there's I like to just look at, there's a lot of Christians that get it right. I don't know if you use Instagram or any of that sort of stuff, but finding the people that do live that above reproach life and that you think are relevant, that you think are really cool. Even people like the Hillsong United crew seem to do a good job. Some of those people. It depends what you call cool. What I call cool and relevant. I know Tonks would never listen to Hillsong United.
They're right. Young and free.
Young and free, yeah. But I wouldn't listen to Petra. I might. I'll go listen to them when I get home.
You'll hate it.
Yeah, maybe. Don't know.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, wait and see. Petra. I'll look for them on Spotify in a moment. Okay.
It's not growly music.
What genre would you call it?
It's just rock.
Rock, okay.
Yeah, contemporary rock.
Okay, number 5. The Christian definition of burnout sounds a lot like clinical depression. Any way to tell which is which, or is it really the same thing?
Now, this is one I'd put a lot of reading into. Now, firstly, Josh or myself, we're not doctors. And really, if you're struggling with burnout, if you're struggling with depression, you're wondering about that kind of stuff, we would really recommend that you would seek medical help, a professional counsellor, go to your GP. The stuff that I'm sharing here, I've done a bit of research, looked up a few medical journals and things to get some ideas. But again, if you're struggling in that area, get some professional help. Sometimes can feel like burnout, depression. There's a bit of confusion about them because the symptoms can actually be very, very similar. Very similar. So it's probably might be whoever sent this message in, maybe that's part of the reason behind the message. But so let's not focus on the symptoms themselves, right? At a very basic level, the big difference between burnout and depression is associated with high levels of cortisol, a hormone secreted by the body in response to stress, right? So depression is a high level of cortisol, where burnout is actually linked to low levels of cortisol. So the symptoms are similar, but the cause can be very, very different. Another difference between burnout is generally defined as extreme exhaustion after the body and the mind have been exhausted and pushed too far. Burnout's caused by external factors, right? So the pressure at work kind of thing, it's the external factors, where depression can have no external factors at all, but it's in clinical depression, a diagnosed illness often caused by chemical imbalances within the brain. So there's no defined cause of that, and that's why it's so difficult to get over it or get cured or get well again. Another difference, the effects of burnout are mainly centred around the source of the burnout. So what that means is the majority of burnout is work-related and the effects are more greatly felt in that work environment. So often when the person who is going through burnout gets out of that work environment and gets home, they can actually start to relax. But as soon as they then go back into work the next day, the stress and the anxiety and the worries all start to rear its ugly head again, and the burnout starts to hit even harder perhaps. But when it comes to actual depression, well, that can affect every area of life, and there never seems to be anywhere where the person is able to get their head above water and get that fresh breath of air again, sort of thing. So burnout and depression, they are certainly different. Similar symptoms as that we go through those things, but we really need to make sure that we get on top of them. And with burnout, the thing with burnout is it can very easily and very quickly turn into depression if it's not treated. So, as I said at the start of the question there, If you are feeling burnt out, if you're feeling that depression is becoming an issue, then please get some professional help. Go to your GP, speak to your GP about options, get onto some counsellors. Josh and I are aware of some very, very good Christian, qualified Christian psychologists and counsellors, and we'd love to be able to lead you in that right direction for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's one of those ones you don't want people looking in the wrong places, and
No.
even if you suspect you might have it, go and find out. Don't just think, oh, I'll ask the pastor and they can help me. But it's one of those ones, if you've got even just a little bit of doubt that you think it could be that depression or something you've got there, then it's really important that you address that. And the next one is very tightly similar to that one. It's good to see a few more people jumping on and commenting.
Excellent.
So, Paul Anderson's a big fan of Petra, by the way.
Yeah, good on you, Paul.
He's-
More power to you, Paul.
Okay, I've just
He'll
lost.
get that. Clinton got that.
Must be a song reference. Where's the last one? How do we... Oh, no. Do you think burnout and emptiness are interlaced? No. Interrelated. Interrelated.
It's a bit of a yes and no answer. That's always a cop-out, isn't it? Yes and no answers. But the thing is that the feelings of emptiness could certainly be one of the causes of burnout. So that's probably how they're more related. It's very separate kind of things, but that feeling of emptiness could be that cause of burnout. What I mean by that is it comes down to what someone is trying to fill the emptiness with. So, for example, feelings of emptiness in the workplace could lead to someone overcompensating. So, why am I the one being overlooked for the promotion? Why am I not getting that pay rise that others have been getting? Why am I not getting the credit that should be due to me? So, in order to try to get that, we work harder, we work longer hours. That just starts to lead into that burnout kind of feeling. So, that's probably how I see that they are related. Very, very separate, but it could be the cause of burnout, trying to fill the emptiness with the wrong things.
Yeah, very much. I remember when I first got the book, and I'm like, oh, they're pretty similar, aren't they? But as you particularly, I recommend read the book if you haven't got it, and you'll see that chapter
absolutely.
dedicated to each of them, and you really do see how different. So there's some fantastic questions, and we've got some more. We've got a few more on the practical side here.
These are where the no notes are.
Okay.
I could research those first few.
Yep. So here's a good practical one, though. So there was a chapter all about disconnection and how important it is to disconnect, which is hard to do in this era at the moment because we rely on technology to connect. But how do you disconnect? I assume both of us, but yeah, how do you disconnect?
I find my garden is a great place to disconnect. I'm on just over an acre in my yard. It's all lawn and garden and trees and things. So I spend a lot of time every week, particularly in the spring and summer times, when everything's growing and all that kind of stuff. Lately, weeds popping up from the rain. But I love just getting out into the garden. I'll put on a set of headphones, listen to some music, listen to some podcasts, and just sort of lose myself into the garden. I'll sit on the ride-on mower. It takes me about an hour and a half to mow my lawn. Go and get the hedge trimmers, go and get the whippersnipper and all that, and just kind of zone out a little bit until I hear Kylie yelling from the back door, lunch is ready, or do you want a cuppa or something like that, and it sort of brings me back into reality. But that's a really good time for me. It's quite therapeutic getting out and doing the gardening.
Yep. It's important. I preached on this topic, so if you're out there, you would have known some of the ways I disconnect. But I try to just leave the house without technology sometimes and go for a walk, go to the river. But it's such a difference when you you just listen to a podcast and you put your phone on Do Not Disturb. But if you just go somewhere where you don't have that connection with you, which is really hard to do for particularly young people, but I think just about for everybody, and just having little practices like that that you get. I don't sleep with my phone in my bedroom. I make sure it's in another room to charge, just because it used to... I'd start thinking about the buzz. I don't know if anyone used to get notification syndrome, but you'd hear that buzz and you'd think, oh, I wonder if it's important, or I wonder if it's interesting, and you'd grab it and you'd have a look at it.
I turned all notifications off.
Yeah, I have done that now as well. That's actually another great way to disconnect, is just turn all notifications off, even when a text pops up. Yeah, so lots and lots of practical ways. I'd like to know how you guys disconnect, so pop that in the comments if you want. So I think everybody disconnects in different ways. Even exercise I find is quite good as well for me to disconnect, or... without disconnecting from technology, sometimes I think you need to disconnect from people. And I love just playing Xbox sometimes and just forgetting that anything else, and I'll put the phone away again.
It's a good one.
Okay, next one. Where is it? What do you do in your life to prevent burnout?
Well, you preached on disconnection. I preached on the burnout kind of thing. Well, the gardening is part of that. That disconnect is certainly part of that. A number of things is I make sure that I have my day off. So every Wednesday is my day off. And it's a non-negotiable. It's got to be something really, really important for me, such like if I'm conducting a funeral, it's almost the only thing that I'll do to break that. And there's a bit of working around with school holidays with kids and things like that as well. But have my day off every single week, and that's just a time for me and Kylie to spend the day together. The kids come around, well, not currently, but when things are back to normal, the kids come around for our family dinner on Wednesday night. And so it's very much everything else is ignored. It's a day to spend just with my wife, just with my kids. And again, a bit like you said before, disconnecting from everything else, all the other people, all the other distractions. That's a good one. Reading, I love to just read. I got a new book on Monday, 519 pages. I couldn't believe how big it was. That's going to give me...
Is it about Petra?
No, it's about Mott the Hoople.
Okay. Don't know them.
So there you go. And I've got a lot of obscure music that we'll introduce you to. But reading, walking the dog is a big thing lately. It's nice to get out because we're not allowed to do a lot at the moment.
Just when you can say g'day
to excuse to go out and walk the dog, and he gets probably sick of walking every day. Oh, again? What are you taking me again?
I bumped into a couple from church at the supermarket the other day, and it was like the highlight of my week. It was incredible. The people can see. But yeah, burnout. I was about to go next question for a tick there. But burnout, I think it's just finding those things that give you energy as well, and in your day off. So obviously you've still got to attach for work, but I actually just find going to the football club helps me a lot, and just having that completely different environment. I'm really bad at stopping and not doing anything, so I find going to something like footy and doing things still helps me, but it's still very important to rest as well, so you sort of have to make yourself rest. But I find things like having those outside interests from, depending on what you do, it can be with any job, so if you've got a particular job that takes a lot of your mind space, having that outside interest where you can go there and you don't have to worry about working or anything like that, and exercising, playing football, watching football might take your mind off it for those people, but it could be, as you said, so many different things. And I love how you said you just protect that time and protect the day off, and it might mean prioritising something silly like a game of golf you play every week, or little things like that, and people will be like, well, how can you put a game of golf ahead of work? But it could be those little things that we protect so that we don't get to those places of burnout. And
Absolutely.
and going on holidays a lot, I think, helps as well. Getting away, leaving town, even if it's just for a weekend.
Or as my wife would say, leave the country.
Yep, leave the country. Don't leave the country as much as I'd like, but you guys have definitely... Okay, the next one. How do you manage healthy pride with being too prideful? So I think it's that way where people sometimes say you need to have that healthy pride and a good self-image, but how do we balance that?
Do you want to answer?
I'm just seeing what other people might have said.
Well, I think there is certainly good pride and bad pride. You can be proud in yourself and your achievements, but it then becomes, do I feed on that affirmation? Is that what gives me my self-worth? That's when pride starts to really get out of control. Or particularly if we start to think that this is all based on me rather than God's blessing. People can be saying, oh, Andrea, because I'm a senior minister, I get lots of the accolades. Oh, Andrea, your church is doing an amazing job with your live feed on Sundays and things like that. And if I'm a prideful person, I can start to think, oh, of course, I'm amazing, without acknowledging the absolutely huge amount of work that Josh has done and Clinton Waters has done, and even a few others that have done. So to avoid the pride is we be honest about, well, okay, it's not me. I'm just being honest about who the other people are and giving them the accolades and directing the praise to them a little bit more. Again, I always bring him up time and time again, Bill Purvis. He often says about, I'd rather be a king maker than a king. And I suppose that's where I find it, where I get pride isn't in myself and in what I do or what people say about me, but I get a lot of pride about seeing others achieving great things, and that keeps a very good balance in, it's not about me, but it is about the other people that we're raising up and empowering in the life of our church. So.
Very much. Yeah, I preached on this one. I struggle with pride a bit, and it is just about getting that balance, and I think I'm pretty sure it's Craig Rochelle that says it, but he always says, don't let criticism go to your heart and don't let praise go to your head. And praise going to your head can be the thing that can really, the criticism bit's important too, but we don't want to get that inflated view of ourselves. And pride, it does feel really good when someone compliments you. I know some people find it a little bit awkward depending on what you're like, but I know I find it, that's pretty good. And you sort of seek it without even knowing, and you sort of look for it in wherever you can find it, and you sort of feed off it. So getting that healthy pride, I think, almost comes from yourself sometimes as well. But it is tricky to get that balance without the awareness. I think you've just got to be very much aware of yourself and what pride does to you. So I have to almost try and, what's the word? Make sure it doesn't go to my head, pretty much. But yeah, and asking others, I wasn't too cocky then, was I? I didn't come off too brash there or something like that. So it's one of those things that I think, and what I notice about pride particularly, it comes really easily to others, and we get a big head sometimes real easy, and some people really struggle getting pride, and for those people it might be the getting the healthy side. Got a few people said how they disconnect. So Joel Barthelson, he says he likes to lie down and listen to loud music on his earphones.
Yeah, that sounds a good one.
Paul Anderson said mindfulness and meditation. Fantastic. Nice. Elise Cole, I like to disconnect by stretching, listening to Bible meditation and going for a walk and listening to a podcast. I also highly recommend putting on a dreamy playlist and having a shower by candlelight. Highly recommend.
I'm not doing that.
Not going to have a shower by candlelight?
No.
Really? She put it in capitals. Highly recommend. Yeah. Adele Beasy, love jamming to worship music and taking some time outside. See, there's a big theme with outdoors in a lot of that too. Music and outdoors seems to be huge, actually. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And Paul also said about pride, I try to enjoy the success instead of bragging about the success. It's a good one. Great tip. Like that idea.
That's good.
Keep putting my phone down out of habit, but forgetting we've got another question. Okay, this is the last one we've got at the moment, so if you've got a question and want us to keep going, please send them in.
Here we go for time.
But,
come on.
Yeah. How do you find a balance? Oh, I've already read this. Oh, no. How do you find a balance between cynicism and addressing a problem? So I'm trying to work out what they meant by that one.
I suppose that, to me, it would be the bottom line of what are we trying to get? What's the outcome we're looking for? So a cynical person would just be critical for critical's sake. And their goal is probably to run people down, to elevate themselves, and just because of that nasty, hard-hearted, cynical attitudes, where constructive criticism is about trying to help something become greater for a bigger purpose. So if I want to make what we do as a church better, so someone might give constructive criticism for our preaching. Now, if they come across because they're jealous because they've never been a preacher, or somehow we've offended them, and so their negativity is just about running us down. That's the cynicism. But if someone's genuinely loving us as their pastors, they genuinely love this church, but they've got some suggestions that may help us become better preachers, then I'm sure we'd appreciate that kind of thing. So it's really about what is the outcome that person is aiming for.
That's well said. Probably couldn't add a heap more. I'm just going to read the question again. Yeah, and just again, I think it probably comes back to that. There's not really a positive way to be cynical. So it's not really about finding that balance, but we can become overly cynical when we don't just address a problem or communicate it. And it can come out the wrong way. Or we think we're addressing it and we're just being overly sarcastic or something like that. Yeah, so that's our 11 questions we've gone through at the moment.
All right.
Yeah, so if anyone's got any more, we'll give you a couple minutes. I'll just have a quick look here. So we've had a few people engaging. It's good to see lots of people on the chats. Has anyone got any there? Diane Morell said...
Oh, she's got a question, has she?
It's not a question. She said constructive criticism is looking to the other person, where cynicism is very self-centred. So you can see there's a lot of great wisdom coming through in the comments as well, so make sure you're looking at them in there. So if you've got any more questions to chuck them in, it'd be great to hit the 45-minute mark. We've only got 5 more minutes to go for that. But thank you for tuning in. If this is something that you want more of, if you want different topics, obviously we're restricted tonight by the topics that we've got. But if you'd like us to do a varied amount of topics or something like that, you can send some questions in. Then let us know, give us feedback, because we're looking for ways, especially during the coronavirus period, how we can continue to engage, how we can continue to help and reach people in lots of different ways. So just to remind you, the topics we looked at were cynicism, pride, disconnection, burnout, emptiness, and there's one that I've missed there. Compromise. That's it. Compromise. I don't think we're going to get too many more through.
That's all right. Thanks, everybody, for your comments and your questions.
Yep.
Let's do it again.
Yep. Fantastic. So, if you were one of the ones to put questions, we'll draw your name and we'll get onto you if you want a book or not. But if you want to buy a copy of this book, we've still got, after we give one away, there's 4 more copies left. So if you want that, they're only $30. Highly recommend this book. We didn't put it in the Pastors Chat this week, which is a new segment you got to check out on YouTube, because we thought that everyone probably already bought it. But this would have been just about on the top of our lists at the moment. But why don't you grab out there. This Sunday we're continuing our series on fear, but please continue to share the pages, continue to share YouTube, continue to tell your friends, and you can go back and watch this whenever you like. But thanks for watching.
Yep. See you Sunday morning, hey?
Powerful and creative, you were sorry.